Make it simple, using generative AI to accelerate learning. My name is Lightfoot. I'm a developer advocate at AWS, and today we're going to talk about how we can evolve, how we learn, and knowledge share. Meet Terry Whitlock. He's our latest new hire, no relation to Jason Whitlock. He's excited to be a part of our DevOps team. There's so much to learn in our environment. And of course, as we introduce Terry Whitlock, we want to let him know that we have 150 tools for him to learn, and he needs to learn them by Friday. How many of you can relate? Exactly. So the thing is about these tools that Terry needs to learn, when we join our organizations, it's always a process of the lack of training, the lack of mentorship, the lack of documentation, the lack of updated documentation. It's like an ever-ending cycle, whether you're a new hire or you're trying to upskill. So with this talk, my goal is to help us think of ways that we can evolve. And what we really need is to help DevOps engineers and developers understand that you don't have to feel lost, you don't have to feel confused. There are tools and there's ways to do this. So what do we need? We need to be able to use our natural language to ask questions about our documentation, to query our documentation, to gain insights from our documentation beyond just the traditional search, because it doesn't work. And here's where generative AI comes in. Generative AI allows us to use a prompt to ask the large language models questions like generate me an image of a monster or generate me a new document for my environment or my DevOps operations. Generative AIs give us a ton of new capabilities at our fingertips. There we go. So how does it work? Basically, generative AI takes public data from the internet, trains a foundational model with pre-training. Once that foundational model sees that data, it's able to learn new capabilities like text generation, summarization, but there's some challenges around that. The large language model does not understand our proprietary information in our organization. It also doesn't have any context around the current date or current time. There's many challenges that are related to this. For example, here we're using the Anthropic Claude 3 large language model, and we're asking it about our internal application called Inframind. Notice that Claude has no recollection of this application in the data that's in the foundational model. So what we really need to do is customize this model. And there's ways to do this from left to right, ranging in the complexity, quality, cost, and time of how we want to customize our model. So for today's solution, we're going to use RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. This is where we retrieve data from an external data source, augment that data in the form of a prompt, and then generate a response from a large language model. Now, how RAG works, it has two workflows. First, the data ingestion workflows, where we take the data, embed it into a vector store, and then we have the text generation workflow where we actually retrieve the data from the vector store, augment it in the form of a prompt, and then we're able to use it. Now here we create the data ingestion workflow. First thing we're going to do is gather our data with a Lambda function and store it in the S3 bucket. And we use this, and we can actually automate this with EventBridge. From there, we create a knowledge base in Amazon Bedrock, where we take our data, chunk it, create embeddings, and then store it in our vector store. This is fully managed. So 3 clicks, we can have this already created and have our fully managed ingestion pipeline. From there, we create our text generation pipeline or workflow with the knowledge base's retrieve and generation API. We create Lambda functions for this back-end Lambda function that we can actually query for our application. Once we put this together, we can call that Lambda function, create a front end for our application. Now when we ask it about what is Inframind and how do I get started, the large language model can now tell us how to actually do this. It has all the context that it actually needs. And so now when Terry joins our team, he can just use generative AI to actually do things and help our teams evolve. This is how we can evolve knowledge sharing. Now before we go, I'm going to leave you with this quote from Claude. The richest resources for learning reside in a stubborn will to use what is already within our reach, wisely and to its fullest. We have all the tools we need to exceed. Right now is the best time, I believe, to be in tech. If you want to learn more, here's a link to a workshop. Check it out to get started with generative AI on AWS. My name is Lightfoot. I thank you for your time, and I'll catch you later.
Fantastic.